my room.
Go, Mom, go. Yeah, Mom. Oh! No, turn it and score.
Because you were basically like these guys' age when you decided this is what you wanted to do, right?
Like, actually his age. That's crazy to imagine. Do you know exactly what you want to do?
Not exactly, no.
I'm definitely the aberration. I don't think
Yeah.
it's normal to know exactly what you want to do and not deviate from that.
Right.
That's weird, for sure.
Since she was a teenager, Jessica Berman wanted one job: to be the commissioner of a sports league. A few years back, she achieved her goal, becoming the head of the National Women's Soccer League.
Opening day for the National Women's Soccer League, and it's a landmark day for women in sports. Let's go!
The NWSL is the fastest growing professional sports league in the world. And over Jess Berman's first 2 years at the helm, there's never been a dull moment.
Who's the best league in the world? Is it the Premier League? Is it the NFL? That is our aspiration. Our aspiration is to be the best league in the world.
The NWSL certainly has the receipts to prove their unrivaled growth. This year, the San Diego Wave was purchased for $120 million, a mind-boggling 60 times return on investment in a mere 3 years. That's all the more surprising given how close the NWSL was to failing right at the moment Jessica took the job.
She came in when the league was on fire, honestly, and it could have gone either way. It could have burnt to the ground, or you rise from the ashes, as it has.
Jess has radically reshaped the league and handpicked others to join her to shore up the business case for women's football. Now, with expectations at an all-time high, the real work begins. Work to make a lasting impact on the pitch, in the owner suites, the league office, and beyond.
What we're trying to build at the NWSL, I really do believe will change the world. This isn't a job, this is a purpose.
This is Power Players. If you want to get a temperature for the state of the NWSL, it's right here in LA.
How's everyone doing? We are back! Yeah, baby!
It's opening day for Angel City FC, a team that's been a media darling of the NWSL over the last few years. Led by their star-studded list of celebrity investors like Natalie Portman and Jennifer Garner, and former U.S. women's national team players like Julie Foudy.
We have said this for many years, and yes, I'm a little frustrated that it's taken this long, but for a long time, we're like, no, this is where you want to be. There's a return on this investment. It's not just a good thing, it's a really good business thing.
This is the third try at a professional women's soccer league in the U.S. Kicking off its 12th season, the NWSL has already existed twice as long as the previous other leagues combined.
It's going to take like 3 days and a lot of wine, actually, to talk about why this league is surviving and the others didn't. But I think you look at Angel City, bought for under $3 million and recently valued at $180 million, and people say that's too low.
Angel City is the latest of the NWSL franchises to explore a potential sale. Team ownership in the NWSL has dramatically shifted in recent years. In fact, all but 2 of the teams are either new to the league via expansion or have changed hands since 2021. And finding ambitious new ownership for the long haul has been a main building block of Jessica's strategy. This is a league that's been around for a few years. How do you find the right sort of stewards, and how do you adapt the league to them and vice versa?
I'll actually quote someone who I think is universally recognized as an icon and a legend in our industry, Rick Welts, who came from the NBA, built and ran the Golden State Warriors, is someone that I think most of us in the industry look to for advice and guidance. And he told me over breakfast, which is something that I think about often, that what we have achieved in the NWSL from an investor perspective over 2 years is the equivalent of what it took other leagues like the NBA 25 to 30 years to achieve. And I was like, no wonder I feel so both invigorated and exhausted at the same time.
Yeah.
We have, in such a short period of time, brought together the most incredible investors, people who see the long-term vision, who are well-capitalized, but not only well-capitalized, people who are willing to invest that capital.
In sports, it's the team owners that both take on the most financial risk and conversely stand to benefit from the biggest rewards. To overly simplify the calculus, an owner wants to take in more money through ticket sales, sponsorship and merchandise rights, as well as lucrative media deals than they spend on fielding a team. When there's large revenue coming in, it's easy to invest more in the team itself. But for the NWSL, there currently isn't huge revenue for teams. So Jessica and the league have tried to find stewards who are willing to take the bet on investing now, with the promise of long-term profits and asset appreciation. As you know, the revenues are still relatively small. So how do you square that, and how do you ensure in a very optimistic and enthusiastic market that it doesn't get too far ahead of itself?
We're very comfortable with the sort of firmness of the valuations that we're seeing of our clubs, and a real testament to the kinds of investors we're bringing in, which are not necessarily sports teams investors. They are people who see the long-term value of investing in this asset class, knowing that on a relative basis, it has outperformed almost every asset class that exists today.
One reason for that growth is how the league is set up. Unlike its American cousin, the WNBA, under control of the men's NBA, the NWSL is fully in its own control, separated from the American MLS. Even the NWSL's international competitor, the Women's Super League, or WSL, has teams that are owned and run as part of their men's league counterparts in the English Premier League. Where decision-making in other leagues and teams is often led by the men's side, the NWSL is able to make decisions and innovate around what works for them. The league has embraced new types of thinking so much that it was ranked by Fast Company as the 5th most innovative company in the world, 4 spots higher than ChatGPT maker OpenAI.
We're really proud of that because we think in a challenger property, emerging property type of mindset where we're competing for dollars, we're competing for mind share, we're competing for those eyeballs on screen in our new media deals, that we have to be willing to take risk and to push the envelope.
I do want to take a beat on the media piece, because obviously that was historic and massive. 40x, is that right? What
40 times
what you had gotten before?
We are going to be partnering with CBS Sports, ESPN, Amazon Prime Video, and Scripps on Ion to bring forward the opportunity to have 4 times the distribution in national broadcast windows.
You know, now with at least a part of a season to look at that, how is that going? And from the metrics and the KPIs that you set, like, where are you trending there?
I have regular check-ins with each of CBS, ESPN, Amazon, and Scripps. They couldn't be happier with how we're doing from a viewership perspective. Most of our sponsors are spending money with our media partners, which is super important. That is literally the revenue engine that drives and justifies how much they're investing in us.
That asset growth has caught the attention of investment firm 6th Street and its founder, Alan Waxman. The team, Bay FC, is located just down the road from San Francisco and entered the league in 2023 with a $125 million investment to launch the club and build team facilities, bringing together Wall Street players with player owners at its core. Allie Wagner, Leslie Osborne, Danielle Slayton, and perhaps the most iconic of them all, Brandi Chastain. She was the woman, of course, who scored the deciding penalty kick in the 1999 Women's World Cup.
Go! This is us. This is AFC here now in this building. What does that mean?
This is what we did it for. Leave it better than we ever had it.
I know.
What about you?
I mean, I don't know. All I have to say is I love that we got to do this together. We just relied on each other through the good, bad, and ugly, and today is the beautiful, right? And we get to be here today, so love you guys.
Love you. Oh my God, we did this! We did this!
Princess, so begins Bay FC's storybook first season. We're underway at BMO Stadium, Angel City and the Bay.
I think what we've done is we've established this precedent that women's sports has a place in the landscape of sports in America, but also that football rules the globe. And that's our destiny. We plan on being a global brand that is recognized everywhere you go.
I think what's interesting about women's football in particular is just the growth that we've seen globally in these other national teams and in their investment in the women's game, and that is a massive shift.
The world is caught up. A lot of these countries didn't even have teams. If you go back 15, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, and it feels like those who have had teams are getting better, and the United States right now is sort of teetering.
The reality is that will impact the NWSL. We need their success to help drive engagement in the United States, to help drive the narrative that we are the best in the world.
Being seen as the best in the world is massively important to the NWSL. Before, players like Alex Morgan, Carly Lloyd, and Megan Rapinoe regularly competed and won at the highest levels of global competition. And upon returning home, they'd bring new fans to their club teams in the NWSL. Now with increased global talent, not only will the NWSL have to work harder to attract international players, but it's facing competition with the WSL and its connection with some of the biggest brands in football. But the current headwinds Jessica and the NWSL are facing seem minor in comparison to what she faced when she first joined the league.
Oh, this one. Okay. I actually saved this on my phone when I started, which is a screenshot of Megan Rapinoe's post, "Let It Burn." That's how she felt, and frankly, a lot of players felt about the state of the league.
The National Women's Soccer League faces a reckoning over charges that it ignored abuse of its players.
And you can see players from both teams arm in arm, linked.
Oh, wow.
They're all moving to the center circle together right now.
I hope we're in a real moment of reckoning where we can turn this into real change and hopefully save the league, because as it stands right now, that's not really the league any of us want to be a part of.
When you showed up, it was not guaranteed that this league would even exist by this point where we're sitting here today. I think now removed a little bit. As you look back on that, what are the key decisions that you can appreciate now that you and the rest of the team and the governors made?
Our goal is to make the NWSL a place where players are proud to play. Everything else I strongly believed would fall into place if we could get that right. The way we approached that investigation, which was to lock arms with the union, to face it down, to not be afraid of the truth.
The report painted a scathing picture of systemic abuse, lack of investment in facilities, and a culture of fear. It also said U.S. soccer executives, NWSL owners, and coaches at all levels had turned a blind eye to allegations made by players. In the aftermath, the league implemented minimum requirements for facilities, increased the employees of the NWSL by nearly 300%, and most importantly, ownership changes were made. And an opportunity emerged for Jessica to work on addressing culture.
You go back to some of the sayings from leaders that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And the most important thing for the organization, I think, is to come together and align around our culture, our values, and work at it.
So that's what they did. Jess was able to get the players to buy back into the league, including the incredible comeback of Sinead Fairley and Mana Shim. The two had left pro soccer for years amidst the sexual abuse scandal, but then made their triumphant return in 2023 with Gotham FC. Gotham FC would go on to win the 2023 NWSL Championship later that year. The team around that same time also welcomed a new investor, one with a deep understanding of pro sports ownership. Oh, hello.
Hello.
Fancy meeting you
Good
here.
To see you.
Great to see you as well.
Good to see you. Do you definitely feel the legacy of the NFL here?
Carolyn Tish-Blodgett and her family lay claim to multi-generational ownership of the New York Football Giants, one of the preeminent American sports franchises and one of the original NFL teams. Now, as governor of Gotham FC, Carolyn is running her own team, and she's one of the key individuals that Jessica's brought on board to represent a new class of ownership, one who's had a taste of success building long-term businesses.
As we're thinking about the business we're building at Gotham and the business we're building at the league, we are every day thinking about like what did the Giants do right?
So when you think about the NWSL, I mean, Jessica Berman, the commissioner, talks about the ambition of the league in the context of the NFL. On the face of it, you're like, okay. Like, I mean, NFL is literally the top of the heap when it comes to professional leagues. I mean, do you think that ambition is warranted? Is that how you think about it?
That is how we think about it. I mean, there's a reason that, I think one of the things that Jessica has done so well in her short time as commissioner is bring in like-minded owners and investors that share that same ambition.
Carolyn grew up around the NFL. She was less than 10 years old when her grandfather bought half of the Giants from the Mara family in 1991. John Mara and her uncle, Steve Tisch, now run the team in one of the most successful partnerships in pro sports. And Carolyn's actively involved in that club, advising primarily on issues like marketing and fan engagement. A graduate of Yale, she honed her marketing chops at one of the once highest-flying consumer brands, Peloton. During the home fitness startup's ascent, she worked on shaping that brand. You really do represent this like new category, this new class of owners, as you say, who has experience elsewhere.
Yeah, so most days actually building Gotham feels much more akin to building Peloton than it does building the Giants, since this is pretty established already. When I look back at what was so successful about building the Peloton brand, several different areas. One is around building the instructors into stars. And so now, we kind of take for granted that Robin Arzon is a household name. Mm-hmm. Ali Lev is sitting on the Today Show set, but that wasn't what we walked into, when I joined Peloton in 2016. I think about that a lot with Gotham, is how do we make Lynn Williams, Crystal Dunn, Rose Lavelle into household names? And that is very much a part of our thesis at Gotham, is our ability to do that.
Being in New York allows Gotham access to major media brands and spheres of influence.
The reigning National League champions, Gotham FC, have signed new stars to their team for the 2024 season. Two-time Olympian, World Cup champion, and three-time NWSL champion, Crystal Dunn.
While teams like Gotham and Angel City have opportunities to leverage their home cities to bring in star players, the Kansas City Current is attracting talent through real estate. The Current boasts the first and only stadium built for women's sports, adding further infrastructure for a massive bet on the future of the league.
I believe that the future of this league, to be able to reach the potential that we all know is possible, we need to control our facilities. And that is not solvable in the short term. And we need to create strategies and tactics to build coalitions in local markets to be able to figure out how we do that. And I think each market is going to look a little bit different.
I've never actually seen a Cybertruck.
I was just going to say, this is the player parking lot, if you couldn't tell.
I mean, ambition costs money, is one way to think about it. How do you think about the sort of levers that you need to pull on the revenue side, essentially, to fund the ambition?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the players also recognize we're on a long journey, and we need to crawl before we walk, before we run. Mm-hmm. And so while it would be great to wake up one day and have a facility that looks like this, there are a lot of things we can do before we get there that will improve the player experience. Mm-hmm. And that means the best coaches, that means the best staff, it also means the best facilities. We're really thinking about it as a venture investment where it could go to zero. We feel pretty confident it's not going to. But it could also do this. And we're really thinking about this as hockey stick growth potential. And so that takes a group of like-minded investors to say, what do we need to do today to set us up for that hockey stick growth?
That outsized growth requires a quantum leap in audience and attention to the league. Finding a global audience may be a solution, but attracting international eyeballs is ultimately dependent on the NWSL recruiting the best players in the world to play in the United States.
Definitely when I took this job, this one in particular was never use the word field, never use the word practice, never use the word jersey. Fans, no never jersey. Say jersey or sweater from hockey.
Right.
It's a kit.
It's a kit. So they saved me a lot of embarrassment, I would say.
Football culture has historically not penetrated the U.S. sports fans' consciousness. The rare exception has been in women's sports, and that's mostly because of the U.S. women's national team's decades-long dominance. Kind of an interesting moment for the U.S. women's national team. Huge disappointment. I don't think anybody would argue about that last summer. What did you take away from that disappointing performance in terms of what it means for your league?
The key learning from our perspective from last summer is that while historically it was, I think, believed that the source of talent in women's soccer is the US, perhaps a couple of other countries episodically, that is no longer the case. There's talent everywhere. For my perspective, that creates a huge opportunity. It's one of the reasons that we, coming out of the World Cup, made a whole bunch of changes immediately. And some of the changes that we made with respect to our rules and our salary cap allowed for us to bring in almost 25 of the top international players into our league for this season. And we're seeing those players not only do well, but crush it and create stardom that has really catapulted attendance and viewership and all kinds of great storytelling that will allow for us to capitalize on that growth. It's actually good for the U.S. women's national team who are playing here to be competing day in, day out against top talent.
This sets up another potential massive shift for women's football. One where the NWSL, once buoyed by the national team, can flip the script and both train and promote the future faces of the sport.
Our vision is to be a global brand. Our vision is to stand shoulder to shoulder with the top men's brands across the world in any sport. One of the best ways to do that, the best entry points, is to bring some of those players over from those countries into your squad and create that touch point and create that affinity for those markets. I think that's a win-win. And there's no one better that can monetize that than U.S. markets.
For Allie, Carolyn, and their fellow club owners, success is dependent on growing the next generation of women's football talent. For Jessica Berman, maintaining that culture of innovation and investment on the business side will be critical in forging a connection between those players and a new generation of global fans.
We call it Zoomies. I think she recognizes that this is not just another job on a resume. This is a moment to truly change the trajectory of sports and to change the trajectory of how we think about men and women in society. And that feels like such a, grandiose thing to say, but I think Jessica recognizes this moment.
It was actually my son Andrew, who's a huge soccer fan, and he was showing me that the men's teams were starting to promote the women's teams in Europe, but he was like, I don't know how it's going to resonate when they just throw an F on the name. Like, if you're someone, he said, if you're someone who cares about women and investing in women, don't they deserve their own brand? He was starting to identify just like the basic societal inequities in how the rest of the world thinks about women, and that really allow for me to believe and know that our league is uniquely situated to really be the tip of the spear in helping people to rethink investing in women for women.